And I remember when everything was just first happening, it was very difficult. And it was so hard that I had to go see my family because it was just, for me, it was really difficult for me to deal with the divorce in the beginning times. So how did this album came to be? I remember when my husband and we were just dating. I don't even think we were engaged yet. And we were just like ministering already. And every time he would play a music or a song or something, like he always does, I don't know, I would hear lyrics to the melody. And I would tell him to stop what he was doing, and I would just be like recording what he was saying, and I would like whisper lyrics that I would hear of something he was playing. And I think he got annoyed with me doing that so much that he was like, why won't you just make songs? Let's just put this all into songs. And I said, okay, sure, let's do that. So I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit nervous about it at first because every time I make music, I always like it to be for just me and God. But I thank God for my husband because he kind of pushed me to not be afraid to show people the story and the intimacy and the own personal dialogue that I have with God and myself, and to show the world that dialogue. And I remember there was this one specific moment where we was listening to this song from Marcus Brunet. And I remember there was this one moment he was just jamming, he was just worshiping. And I was sitting in just listening to him, and he didn't even realize that at that moment I was writing lyrics after you heard the song. He was just playing, like going off on his own musical world, and I was just writing lyrics. And I said, here, this is the song that I came up with you playing this. He's like, what do you want to call it? I'm like, I want to call it Pedazos. And that's how Pedazos came to be. And he would come to me and he would be like, oh, what about this and that? And I'm like, oh yeah. That's how Sigo Peleando came out. It was just like a back and forth of him and I just like connecting in such a beautiful way. And I think it's great when you have a spouse that not just connects with you on a musical level, where musically we get each other, we understand each other, but on a spiritual level, we kind of understand the gravitas of the songs, of the intonations, of the progressions, of the chords. And we know on a spiritual level what it's doing and how God is using that to impact the song. And it was just a joy just working on all these songs and working on everything together. And I guess in general, putting the album, it took a lot of work and a lot of time, but for me it was the greatest experience ever because I was able to really understand the purpose of worship and the purpose of being intentional when you're writing, being intentional when you're sharing a message out to people through music, and being willing to just be vulnerable, especially us as worshipers. At times we're so focused on just like leading worship and getting people into an atmosphere and into a space where they're having their full attention towards God. And yes, falling on the floor, being slain and whatever, but we have to also be aware of ourselves and be okay with showing our story and showing our scars and being just vulnerable. And I think this album really taught me that, just being able to show my scars and show my personal stories behind the songs. Like I remember with the song Your Love, that song came out from, and I remember it so clearly, it came out with in a moment where I was just recently divorced, and it was a really dark space in my life. I was battling with anxiety and depression. A lot of changes were going on with, money-wise, the difference of making a lot of money and not making enough in like an instant. Being able to see my kids every single day at one point, and then all of a sudden I don't get to see my kids all the time because we have a custody thing going on. And I remember when everything was just first happening, it was very difficult. And it was so hard that I had to go see my family because it was just, for me, it was really difficult for me to deal with the divorce in the beginning times. And I remember coming back to New York, and I remember I had to be in my room by myself, and it was so hard for me, especially if you're a mom. You'd understand, like, when you don't see your kids all the time like you're used to, it's a huge loss. And I remember holding my kids' blankets and their pillows in my bed so that I could have their scent, and I'm just like crying, and I'm just like, God, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand why all this is happening. And I remember getting a phone call and having my ex call me, telling me that, oh, maybe we should get, things back together. Maybe, we should work things out. And I remember hearing God as clear as day, just holding me from behind and hugging me. I just felt God so close to me. And I remember at the same time hearing a song from Amanda Cook called "It Is Well With My Soul." So I'm hearing the song in the background. I'm hearing my ex-husband, talking to me, and I'm feeling God literally behind me, holding me. And I'm just like, what's going on? And I hear God telling me, I'm going to give you the strength to say no, because you're not meant to, that's it. That's it. It's time to move on. And that shattered me. And I remember hanging up the phone and saying, you know what, no, it's just not going to work out. What happened was the end all be all. We can't go back from that. And I remember crying, but then it went from like crying to a worship. And then I started just screaming your love, literally screaming that, just screaming it in my room. Your love, God, your love. Like, I only need your love. That's all I need. All I need is your love. That's it. And that's where that song came from, your love. And even when you hear the song, there's a point where I just literally scream it out. And hearing it now, it's like, whoa, because I remember when I was in my room just screaming that to God so loud, single, broke, not knowing what on earth was going to happen next. And having that song just come out and being birthed. And at that time, I thought that was just a song for just me and God, to just help me have my breakthrough of just trusting him, and a very confusing process in my life at the moment. And to be able to record it and hear it back and hear, where God took me out from and what he brought me through, and, the brokenness that I felt at that moment, and having God putting everything together again, where now I'm married again, and just to see the power of reconciliation and the power of his love, and knowing that your love really is all I need. It's one of the examples as to why when you hear this album, you just have to connect to a deep part of yourself and allow God to heal places where you didn't even think you need healing. And this album did that for me, like, tremendously. And I just really hope that when you guys hear these songs that you'll be able to connect with that in some way, shape, or form.